So whenever there's an opportunity for us to stand up for what is right, I believe that we need to take it, especially if it means that we're protecting others. So protection in regards to safety, but also in how we plan for projects to help ensure that they're successful. Far too often I see in the transportation industry, the situations where it's almost like we're alone, there's no protection in place, and at times no one's advocating to fix the issues at hand. That's why I'm excited for today's episode, as I speak with John Ashton, Executive Director with the Alberta Sand and Gravel Association, as well as Aurora Beekman, Operations Manager of AMI Rockchain. Throughout our conversation, you're going to see how the Alberta Sand and Gravel Association is advocating for those in our industry, and I strongly recommend getting connected with them, especially if you're an aggregate hauler in Alberta. So you can learn more, just simply visit www.asga.ab.ca. Well, let's get to it. John, Aurora, welcome to the Truck Focus podcast. Super excited for our conversation today, just as we dive into who is the Alberta Sand and Gravel Association and just the value that you're offering basically to two industries, transportation and aggregate. Really excited. So welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. So John, why don't you kind of start us off and highlight, so who's John Ashton and what's your experience been like with the Alberta Sand and Gravel Association? And yeah, we'll get going from there.
I'm the executive director to the Alberta Sand and Gravel Association. I wandered into this position, very serendipitously. I'm not hired here. I'm not in this position because I have a lot of experience with aggregate, but that's okay. We already have members that are. Why I am here is because of my background and experience with government relations, working in politics and economics. And that's how I wound up here, and been here 5 years now. Great people to work with. What I learn every day is just how necessary, how important this industry is to every other industry. Really happy and proud to be here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's a strong skill set to bring to an association that's making a difference too. And that's nice to see, because when you first mentioned that off camera, like first time we talked, I'm like, didn't know that training existed. So yeah, I thought that was powerful. And how about yourself, Aurora?
Yeah, so Aurora Beekman, I'm actually with AMI Rockchain, operations manager for AMI Rockchain, which is a division of AMI. So been working in the transportation and logistics for just over 17 years now. All different types of trucking, logistics, materials, all sorts of stuff. And now recently into the construction and aggregate field big time. So that's been a really big focus, and yeah, glad to be here. Thanks again.
Awesome. Yeah, welcome both of you. And it's nice that, so when we first started talking again, I really respect professionals that care and you actually have experience in things that you're doing to make a difference. So it's just nice seeing the collective effort. That's really cool. So John, can you kind of highlight then the Alberta Sand and Gravel Association? Who do you advocate for, and highlight some of the stuff that you guys do?
So we've been around a long time. We've been an association in place since 1974. We are here to advocate for the industry, for the producers that produce and supply our province with aggregate. We have a very large demand. Canada is one of the most highest users of aggregate per capita, in the top 5 in the world. And Alberta is one of the highest users of aggregate as a province compared to the other provinces. So we're pretty crucial industry in all the buildings you see, all the roads you drive on, the sidewalks you walk on. So much stuff needs aggregate to exist, right down to your toothpaste that you have in the morning when you're brushing your teeth. So we're here to advocate for industry, advocate for an industry that behaves, that is environmentally responsible, that's responsible for the roads we drive on, which we'll talk about in a bit, and how we behave on those roads. And we represent about 60% roughly of all the gravel producers in Alberta that produce about 80% of the gravel that we use. So that's our reason for being, and we have a couple of programs, Truck Registry, which we'll talk about in a bit. We also work on a social licensing project called the Community Aggregate Payment Levy to essentially help compensate communities for our presence. We also hold events. We're going to have a convention in this month in January 19th and 20th, and a lot of other functions in between as well.
Incredible. Yeah, it's a huge impact. And when you stop to think about the toothpaste, you're like, wow, okay, because obviously roads, it makes sense, and buildings. But yeah, when you get down that deep into like, okay, where are you actually impacting? It's pretty remarkable. So how many members currently are there from a producer standpoint, but also a carrier standpoint?
For members, and members include producers, associate members, which supply equipment and other need supplies to the industry, and consultants. There are consultants that help with environmental permitting and other things. And there's actually about 20 municipal governments that also have a membership with ASGA. We're just around usually 200 members, member companies out of those four categories. In terms of truck registry participation, it jumps up and down very widely over the course of the year. And this is a thing, right? Because this is a program that needs a yearly renewal, every year, December 1st, we start off at 0 and work our way up. But for context, last year, we had about 1,500 trucks in Alberta participating in this.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good number. So 200 producers and associates, and then about 1,500 trucks. And something I think that's neat about that's the trickle effect of obviously membership. So if a company has, say, I don't know, 500 employees or whatever, that's a huge impact when you times it by 200, as well as the truck side. So that's really cool. And then Aurora, is that kind of your area of specialty, is more on the carrier side? Like, is that your involvement with the ASGA?
Yeah, we so we deal with a lot of different carriers, AMI as a whole, and so we really look for, obviously qualifications, compliance, all that, but as well we look for the ASGA number, who's registered with them, and we'll get into kind of what that does and how it helps. But it is something that we ask for from all of our carriers, whether they're participating in the truck registry.
Nice. That's a really good collective system. And yeah, I love compliance and I love operational improvement, and knowing that you guys have certain things in process and in place. I really respect it. And so John, even with that said, in our initial conversation with yourself, Aurora, and I, you were talking about pit approval, which was also a big learning curve for myself. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of what actually goes into, if you see it, like actually where I live, not too far from us, there's a water treatment plant, and then there was actually something that was a pit, is what our developer told us. So what goes into getting pit approval, and how does the ASGA work with producers and different counties and whatnot to make sure that things go right? How does that process work?
So most things you'd expect have to go through some level of government to get approval on any kind of development. We're one of the few industries in the world, well, in Canada at least, that has to get approval from two different levels of government, both the province in terms of our environmental impact, and then local municipalities in terms of zoning, in terms of other impacts, noise and dust. And it's not an easy thing to get a pit approved in any part of this province, nor should it be. It is we're aware that we leave a footprint, literally and figuratively, on a community when aggregate is being dug up. We're aware that we have to prove that we're safe to be around, as any kind of mineral extraction or sand or gravel extraction should be. But we also face a lot of very, very long wait times for approval. It can be that to get a gravel pit approved by Alberta Environment Parks is measured in years. 3 to 5 years is not unusual for an application process through Alberta Environment Parks. Moreover, we still also have to, up until very recently, we had to get approval from the city, municipality, rural government to dig that pit before we could even go through that AEP process. And that is very contentious, especially, you think about your small town mayor or reeve or councillor, and you hear there's a gravel pit going in, and your constituents are worried about, is there going to be air quality issues? Is it going to affect my drinking water? And your answer has to be, I don't know, once we approve this AEP, you'll check. It's not a great answer. So one of the things we work on is trying to get those processes happening simultaneously, or even have that environmental review happen first. So those questions can be answers, and they're legitimate questions. So that's so what we work on here at ASGA is we're not necessarily advocating for individual applications, but we are here to make sure there's a process that happens quickly and efficiently to protect both the citizens and the ecology, but also make sure it happens quickly enough that projects stay economically feasible. We're not here to advocate for deregulation, but we do need it to happen efficiently and quickly without cutting corners to make sure that the economics of a gravel pit doesn't die before it even gets approved.
Right. Yeah, you can see that for sure. If so-and-so wants to build knowing they need this, and if so-and-so's literal business structure is that product, and I didn't realize it could take that long. I can see it from an environmental standpoint where like I'm very mindful of protecting our environment. I don't discredit that, but I agree efficient and quick is key, because otherwise, yeah, you could drag your feet, but man, that's a long time.
It is. And as I say, we're not here to cut corners. Another great thing too about what we do as the aggregate industry is we have something called mandatory reclamation of gravel pits in Alberta. Since 1978, we've had legislation on books that says not only does a gravel pit have to fix that gravel pit, reclaim that gravel pit after it's depleted or after it's done, you have to actually set aside the money ahead of time. Before you put a shovel in the ground, you have to set aside money in bonds, in cash, to pay for that reclamation before the shovel goes in the ground, as it should be. But that's one of the nice things. Some of Alberta's best golf courses are former gravel pits. Howrah Park in Edmonton is a former gravel pit. A lot of our parklands are gravel pit. A lot of our agricultural lands, especially around the capital region, are former gravel pits. So that's one of the great ways we're able to give something back.
Incredible. Yeah, I like that. I didn't know, so I appreciate the education, because again, being familiar enough with aggregate, being familiar enough in the oil industry with the promise to repair, but I didn't know you get levied and you have to pay for it basically up front. I think that, again, that's good structure, because then you're knowing it's actually happening instead of, oh yeah, we're supposed to get to that. I see the value for sure. So from a carrier standpoint, then where does the registry, the process, where did that kind of come into play? And yeah, John, if you want to answer, or if you want to answer, totally cool with either, but yeah, go ahead.
Maybe I'll start off just with the background on the program, and then we'll talk about how it works today. So we're aware that gravel trucks do not have a great reputation on the road. And in part, in instances, it's deserved. And you can, if you cut corners, if you behave irresponsibly, if you don't take it seriously, you can be a nuisance on the road in a gravel truck. And so in the 1990s, the gravel producers that operate in the Calgary region, and there's gravel producers that operate right inside the city of Calgary boundaries, got together and realized that one of two things was going to happen. Either they were going to self-regulate, or the government would do it for them, because the problem was that acute. So they came up with the truck registry program. And initially, it only operated within the city of Calgary. And that was for its first 10 years, from about, I believe, 95 to 2004. In 2004, 2005, this program was expanded to cover all of Alberta through the ASGA. And so this is there to demonstrate that we're putting another tool in the toolbox to help ensure good behavior on the roads. And when it doesn't happen, that there's a means with which to communicate these problems. And it's not there to replace law enforcement or by law enforcement or any other program in place for that, but it's there to be an additional tool in the toolbox. And it's also there to be a part of our conversation with municipal governments, because we're aware that having gravel trucks rumble through a community can be a bit loud. And it also, there's a concern about safety, about chips coming off of trucks, not properly tarped loads, issues like that. And so this is our way of showing a municipality, hey, we are serious about trying to be good neighbors and good users of the road. And here's a means with which to reach out when we're not. So that, and the other thing too, is just easier to identify a truck with those decals, those black and white decals high up on a truck, as opposed to like trying to look at a muddy license plate or trying to read the small print on a cab door.
Yeah, there's a lot of value there. And I think there's some ownership and accountability on the driver's standpoint too, where like I give tons of credit to professional drivers when they're a professional driver. And if you don't want to act as a professional, then I have zero problem with enforcement educating you with fines and placing you out of service. But yeah, I'm an advocate for professional drivers. So knowing that, hey, I'm accountable and I'm visible because they can actually read a number. And like you said, sometimes the scratch on the side of a door. Yeah. So when you educated me on that too, I was kind of like, man, there's a lot of thought here where I think a lot of the transportation industry could learn from. And maybe they blame busy, maybe they, whatever the reasons are, but I really value the fact that there's accountability because again, it's just another positive tick for the trucking side of the industry because they can say, no, I'm going to operate as a professional. Like I'll sweep off my mud flaps first, or I'll make sure there's no excess material on the sides of my trailers. And yeah, I think that's key. So is there or I guess not a responsibility, but is there a requirement for a carrier to be registered in order to haul for a producer?
In some municipalities, yes, there are, especially in Northern Alberta. There's a number of municipalities that require it. There are also producers that won't do business with trucks that don't have this decal on them, an up-to-date decal on them. Alberta Transportation requires its contractors to to participate in the truck registry. And and this is becoming more and more. It's not even just governments bringing this in as a regulation. It's producers saying, I don't want to have to do business with someone who isn't taking this step to do it. The other interesting thing about this program, it's the only kind of it's in the world. There's no other gravel association in Canada or the world that has a program like this. So we are very much pioneers on this. We are being watched by other associations over the long term to see how this goes along, and there are other associations looking to emulate it. But yeah, that's the big thing is producers, just don't want to cut this corner anymore because, I mean, in a immediate bottom line dollars and cents way, you can't tell if this is actually improving your profitability or not. But you do not have a right to drive a gravel truck, and you do not have a right to be on any road with it. It's a municipality, or in some cases the province, that decides whether or not. It's not a charter protected right. And a municipality absolutely can deny gravel trucks access to roads if we're behaving badly on them. So that certainly will cost you money down the line. And that's part of the reason why this program is so important.
Totally agree. Yeah, and I think again, from an owner's standpoint, being told, "Hey, one more of this," and you're actually not allowed on our roadways anymore, I think it's a butt quencher. Kind of, oh, okay, smarten up. So I think knowing that in advance, hey, I'm going through the registry and I'm legitimate. I think it's just really overall, it's a good approach. You mentioned other associations are looking at it. If you're allowed to share, what's their take on it so far?
It's a big commitment because I mean it's a lot of overhead. You can't just start it and then decide to stop if you don't like it. And I mean the other thing too is if you have a registry, you're going to have to answer to complaints. And I think a lot of them are dealing with how to handle that. And it does come with cost. Now, the good news is this program doesn't require tax dollars at all. This is solely funded by industry, but that does mean the industry has to pay for it. So I appreciate that these other associations do not want to rush into this and that they've been watching us now for 2, 3, 4 years to see how they can incorporate it into their systems. It's a big commitment on behalf of ASGA to do something like this. I won't lie to you that not every complaint ends happily. But the absence of it would definitely mean there are less roads for us to travel on and less municipal governments happy with us, or at least satisfied with us, or at least content with us. So that's why this program's a necessity to me.
And just to like on that, with the complaints maybe not ending happily, but they are ending, they're resolved, right? So that's a big thing may not be exactly what everybody wanted at the end of the day, but there is some resolution, and it goes back to that accountability to the drivers and the companies, right, to have that.
Totally. Yeah, I see so much value there. And I've dealt with, I could probably say hundreds of phone complaints throughout my career so far, being in different operations roles. And sometimes you're like, what were they thinking? But then also sometimes you're like, No, I don't think our driver actually did anything here, but you can still show some empathy to like the general public that maybe don't understand, like, well, what is a truck and pup and how do they actually have to turn? But yeah, there's education there as well as, yeah, the enforcement side. So I think there's a lot of legs to stand on there for sure. And yeah, there's a lot of value. So Aurora, can you walk us through then? So a carrier, they are listening to this right now and they're like, well, I want to sign up. I want to start hauling for producers in areas that so far I'm told you can't. What does a carrier need to, is it a process? Is it documentation they need to provide, or how do they get registered?
Yeah, honestly, it's a pretty simple process. As I've kind of learned it over and over as well. But the biggest part is getting registered with the ASGA, getting your membership started, getting that going. It's all done online, pretty self-explanatory on there, filling out your company form, getting that going. Once you have that done, then you can just go in and start registering your trucks. You pay your yearly fee for your decals and everything. And as John's mentioned, they're shipped right to you. So it isn't an overcomplicated, but it is getting your name on that list. Like you said, there are municipalities, there are restrictions, and it's making sure that you're following and being held accountable.
Slick. That's a good process for sure.
Yeah, it is super easy. Truck drivers will appreciate what they have done to actually make it easy from a company standpoint. So
perfect. And then so when they go to the website, it's just the is it asga.ab.ca or correct?
That's right. And just click on truck registry and you'll get it both for citizens, for government, and for operators. You'll see instructions and information there.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna I'll make sure that I add the link just in the show notes as well. So that way, yeah, carriers that are listening that want to register, they can. And then from a registry to a compliance standpoint, I'm assuming that just because you register does not mean that you're a perfect trucking company. So there's still the carrier requirements, correct?
yeah, so and that's a big thing depending on where you're working, what projects you're working on. I mean, the basics are your insurance, registration, commercial vehicle inspections. So none of that is actually forced with the ASGA. This is just an additional tool. So it's just a reminder to all the drivers and stuff out there, just because you've got this ASGA does not take any compliance off of you. It is a reminder to keep all your other safety stats, your HSE policies, CVIPs, everything current, and have that paperwork as well. Many communities, municipalities, producers, before they will even load a truck, will require those documents. The ASGA is just another additional tool that, hey, they can actually say that you're a part of and that you're holding yourself to that higher standard.
Like, yeah, I just love accountability in our industry. So knowing that there's, again, the registry process, knowing that there's a number on the back and professional drivers act accordingly, but it doesn't take away from all your other responsibilities is really smart. So.
And that's the biggest thing, is just having another tool for the drivers, for the companies. It does help to, like you said, there's great ones out there and professional drivers we have the utmost respect for. So it's those ones that we want to make sure that they're in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So from an ASGA standpoint, are you basically in a constant state of recruitment? Or is there a membership cap? I doubt there would be, but yeah, if you are constantly recruiting, what's kind of the best avenue for carriers listening right now being like, hey, I want to get involved? Is it simply to visit the website? Is it to call a phone number? Or yeah, I guess, how does ASGA recruit?
Certainly, all the registration happens over our website. So if you're a producer, this is something as a function of your membership. If you're a multi-producer hauler, independent hauler, which I suspect most of the people watching are, you go to the truck registry and there's a specific menu item there for independents, for multi-producer haulers that they can sign up themselves. This is new, by the way. It used to be you had to sign up through a producer. No longer the case. You can sign up as an independent, get your own registration, which will apply for anyone you work for. And that's, and I mean, this is the thing, is we try and get those decals on there, and then there is a yearly renewal to make sure that we keep up to date with you and keep sure you're up to date yourself. And there is also a listing, 2 listings actually, where producers can actually look you up and see if you're participating in the program, and make contracting decisions based on that. You will be listed on the website as an independent hauler that participates, and there's actually a printed directory you're listed in as well. And I mean, in terms of cost compared to all the things you have to pay for to keep a truck on the road, this is fairly minor. For multi-producer, The new decal to sign up for the first time is $240. To renew is $150. There's a $10 delivery fee for the decals. You know, what's that about? I think 1.5 refuelings. That's about the cost there. And for that, you know, you think about, again, the big picture return on it is you have a road to drive on. You have sent a message to the community that you're trying to be responsible out there. You know, will money appear in your hands automatically as a result of it? No. But if you have to drive, you know, a load 20 kilometers out of your way, that'll be an expense.
Yes.
And not only that too, you are, like you said, sought out by people. Companies will look for that. And if it's between you and another carrier and you're on the registry and they're not, a lot of producers will take that into account. It's something that they'll take. So, you know, everything else being equal, of course. So it's getting your name out there and showing that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much value there. Yeah, so part of my background being in oil and gas, there's the core certificate of recognition, and you can't get on sites without it. So I love the fact that this is the same thing. There's certain sites, there's certain roads you cannot even access. So don't even bother trying to bid because you're going to be denied. And I think just having that level of confidence to, yeah, I'm going to put my name on the list and I'm going to apply for those positions knowing full well that I'm compliant and I meet the requirements, I think is really cool because again, in our industry, there's too much. When I'm speaking industry, in trucking in general, there's too much just, if I can use the term cowboy up, get it done. And I don't care, I'm 10,000 pounds overweight. I'm like, well, I do. And I think just, again, there's a lot of value in the registry and a lot of value in what the ASGA is doing. So that's just really nice to know that there's so much confidence there.
Well, I mean, just to speak in generalizations, you know, low bid mentality, constant driving towards just-in-time production. This leads to cutting corners, and this doesn't actually make good business sense in the long term. I'd rather be profitable for 20 years than 20 minutes. And so this is the kind of program that thinks along the same way.
Perfect. I like that statement. I'm going to actually quote that statement. That's awesome. So from a producer standpoint, what would you say, John, is the greatest value the ASGA offers from an advocacy standpoint as an association?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to government relations, a choir always sings louder than a single voice. And that's really what we provide here in terms of government relations. And we have, especially the last 2 years, some solid wins to point to, especially when it comes to permitting processes, to generating a lively and productive conversation with the provincial government, especially with Environment and Parks, with the Rural Municipalities Association of Alberta, which is the umbrella group for all the rural municipal governments in Alberta. We've had a really, really productive three-way conversation to prevent some of the permitting duplication we just talked about earlier in this podcast. We are working very, very hard on what's called the Community Aggregate Payment Levy program to reform that, to make sure that the funds that get paid out by gravel producers goes back into the community in a transparent and effective way, and goes into making our industry serve Alberta better. So there's value in that, and again, not in a immediate dollars and cents thing, but in a long-term sense, there is a real value there. The truck registry program, again, we've talked a lot about the necessity of that. We do some really great events. We're the only gravel convention in Alberta that's gravel specific, and trust me, that's one of the cheapest ones too. And we're one of the cheapest memberships as well. Memberships range, depending on your size, from $400 to $5,500 per year, depending on how much aggregate you produce. And nice, also, last thing, cherry on the top of the sundae, we offer a free occupational health and safety toolkit that is both gravel specific and Alberta specific. It's the only one of its kind. If you bought it retail, it cost you about $8,000. It's free with your membership.
Wow, that's a lot of value. And then I make notes as this conversation goes on, and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. And again, price matters, but like you said, 1.5 fuels, and from an aggregate producer side, that's still super affordable. And yeah, so okay, so for the free HSE toolkit, can you kind of, I guess, highlight some of what's in there as well? I think that's fascinating.
It's a neat story. So this is a really good kind of heartwarming story about partnership between government and industry. One of our members had what's called a creative sentence applied to them on a very serious OH&S violation that almost happily did not cost somebody their life. And the company in question was sentenced to essentially fund this project as a result. So the Occupational Health and Safety Division of the Ministry of Labor came to us and said, we want to work on something that's going to prevent accidents like this happening. And one of the things that our association noticed is there is no handbook that's specific to aggregate pits, to sand and gravel pits for Alberta rules, because every province has different OH&S rules. Some of the things are all the same, but every province has its own nuance. So we worked with staff from the OH&S department of the Alberta government. We brought in our folks from industry who are OH&S specialists who do that all day long. And with the help of a technical writer, we produced a very, very big, very comprehensive handbook for about manager level review on OH&S issues. And the great thing about it, it's written to a way that you do not have to yourself be an OH&S specialist to understand it. And it's also designed to be a reference so that, when you're trying to find out something in a hurry, hopefully before an incident, but find something in a hurry, find a template, find a good practice, it's indexed there so you can, look up the topic, look up what you're supposed to do. And as I say, it's free with your membership. We have a member portal site, and it's sitting right there waiting for you to use whenever you need it. It's also downloadable as well as PDF. So if there's a topic you need to email somebody on, or you just know you're gonna have to look up a lot, you can download it so you have to go into the site every time just to find it. As I say, free with your membership. Free also for all associate and consultant members as well. And certainly if trucking company wanted to have that around, they could sign up as an associate member as well and have access to it. And yeah, it's a great project. It's again, something other provinces, actually the BC section are copying and pasting it and rewriting it to their own rules right now as we speak. Yeah, it's not just a great value, it is hopefully going to make sure everyone goes home after work, which is what you want to see every night, right?
Yes, that is incredible advocacy. And wow, the amount of times that I could think of myself being in situations where I'm like, is that going to fall and crush me? Or there's so much mobile equipment here. And really, in regards to, again, carriers listening, even producers listening that maybe aren't yet ASGA members, I name dropped the website before, and I'll add it into the show links. But can you kind of highlight where people can go just, to become a member or to learn more?
Yeah, it's all there on the website. But I mean, I'm literally, it's my job description to have conversations about these programs with people in industry, people in transportation industry, people in government with curiosity about it. So you know what, throw my phone number up there, 780-435-2844 extension 1. I'm the kind of guy who returns voicemails promptly. So feel free to give me a call. We're here to be a reference. We're here to answer questions about the industry. Certainly lots of information up at asga.ab.ca as well. Yeah, if I can be of service, if I can be of clarification, that's what we're here for.
Incredible. No, I appreciate that. And just kind of as we come to a close, Aurora, I can start with yourself. Just really value just your position and your passion in industry, but was there anything that you'd like to highlight just as we come to a close?
No, I think it was some great information there for, like you said, producers and carriers, and just showing not only from the HSE stuff, but the compliance or the responsibility that it's adding to the carriers, the assistance they offer when there is a conflict, if anything's reported, and just helping deal with those situations. As we make people more aware, it is actually something easier to understand what the gravel trucks are doing on the highway, like you said, if people aren't familiar with it. So this is a great resource, and I think that everybody should use it. Get on there, sign up, and or call John. He does call you back pretty quick, I will say that.
Yeah, I agree. And I appreciate that very much. So this was a great, just a great conversation. So yeah, in closing, John, is there any final thoughts that you would like to share?
Well, thanks very much, first of all, for having this conversation with us. It's great to talk more, and I don't get a chance to do it often enough to talk from people on the transportation side of the industry. We appreciate that this is not the easiest industry to be in. And it does require sacrifice, and we're learning more and more, especially in these days, with what's happened to the transportation sector in highways in BC, what we're learning about supply chains in the hardest way possible, how valuable this role is to society. And happy to provide this service, and hope to be of assistance in the future.
I appreciate it. And you're absolutely right. Just mentioning BC there, where the first pictures I saw of the Coquihalla, and it's like, where are you going to get enough material to backfill that and actually be able to rebuild the highway? It's been very disruptive. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And yeah, just having you both on was really, it's enlightening, it's empowering too, because I really appreciate anyone as an association or as people that advocate for others. And again, you mentioned a few times, just again, this is what it takes to be on the roadways. This is the value offered to producers, and the impact that producers have just as us in society is incredible. So just really appreciate both of your time today, and just, the value that you shared. This was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thanks
we have a
again.
wonderful day. Yeah, thanks so much. John, Aurora, thank you so much for sharing so much value today. I learned a lot about the Alberta Sand and Gravel Association and the essential offerings that they're bringing to industry. And I really appreciate the advocacy that you both bring to our industry as well. And John, as you said, it's better to make profit over 20 years than 20 minutes, and we can do so by operating legally and safely. So I encourage you to learn more about the Alberta Sand and Gravel Association by visiting www.asga.ab.ca, but also encourage you to call John directly and talk to him about the advocacy taking place, but also to sign up as a member. So much value, so much value. So I've included the website link as well as John's phone number into the show notes. And John, Aurora, thank you so much again for all your time today. Just so much value in our conversation. And I really value also just how much advocacy you're giving to the people in our industry. It's just super empowering. So all of our dedicated listeners, thank you so much for checking out this podcast episode. And if this is the first time that you've ever checked out a Truck Focus podcast, I really welcome you to our community. And if you like what you saw, please subscribe. If this is the first time you've ever checked us out, so you can do so by subscribing to any major podcast player that you may be listening to, as well as if you're watching this on YouTube, just subscribe and hit the notification bell so that way you're updated of all upcoming episodes. We do release an episode at least once a week, typically on Monday morning. And again, it's just all about introducing industry leaders like John and Aurora that are creating a pivotal impact in the lives of many. And I'm super grateful that they could participate today. As well, you can always learn more about just our mission by signing up to our monthly newsletter. So it's a Truck Focus newsletter. It's just a different way for our industry leaders to impact the industry. Sometimes it's how-tos, promos, all that good stuff. So of course, the link is in the show notes below. Thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you have a great day. Let's create a pivotal impact. Bye.